What is the difference between sympathy and empathy? Let's break it down. I get it. Brené Brown is the expert on empathy, sympathy, shame. She's coined all these phrases. She talks about what they mean and she defines them really well. But I actually think she misses the mark when she talks about sympathy. Brené Brown has researched shame, empathy, sympathy. She knows a lot, and I love her content. But I've also been in the trenches for a long time with people who are suffering. I worked as a hospice social worker. It was one of my first jobs as a therapist, which means I went into people's hospital rooms and I actually talked to the family members about loved ones who were dying. And in those situations, it was very delicate. But every single day, my heart was full of sympathy for the people that I was working with. So sympathy is very important. I also needed to practice empathy, which is equally as important. So let's talk about what the difference is. Brené Brown has the video of the animals who are sharing things down in the pit and not being vulnerable with each other. And she talks about how sympathy is leaving a casserole on somebody's porch and then running away because you know they're in pain. So it's like, here you go, I know you're in pain. Ugh, can't handle this. It's like sympathy is feeling pain for somebody but not wanting to be vulnerable with them. I actually think sympathy is important. Sympathy is having compassion for somebody's pain. It's not necessarily connecting to them in that pain, in that moment, but it's having compassion for somebody's pain. So if you know somebody who's going through a really difficult thing and your heart goes out to them, that's sympathy. And I actually believe that's good for you. It shows that you're connected to humanity. You're sending good vibes and good energy out to somebody who's struggling and suffering. And I believe that they can actually feel that energy, whether or not you tell them or connect to them or not. But you're having compassion for their pain. I think it's an important human emotion that we have, sympathy, when we connect with other people's pain. Before I tell you what empathy is and what's the difference between empathy and sympathy, make sure that you like this video and please comment below if you totally agree with Brené Brown and you think I'm full of it. I'd love to hear that, so please comment below. Empathy is more vulnerable than sympathy. It's true. Empathy is actually feeling with somebody. It's not feeling for somebody, like I feel bad for you or my heart goes out to you. It's actually experiencing the emotion with them. So it's a bit more vulnerable when you're empathetic with somebody. You sit there with them in their pain. And it's so important that for all of us to feel empathy in our lives and in our relationships. So empathy is amazing. Is it better than sympathy? I'd just say it's different. Both are important. When I work with couples who come into my office, one or the other partner starts to feel emotions. They start to feel sad. They start to feel fear or shut down. And it's amazing to me when the other partner is empathetic, what happens. When they're empathetic, they don't get defensive. They don't get judgmental of their partner. They actually sit with them and allow them to feel what they feel. They validate their emotions. They explore their emotions with them. They cry with them, they hold them. And there's this really cool thing that happens when empathy happens. There's this feeling of relief from the partner who's feeling the emotions. It's this feeling of, I am loved, I am secure. This feels really good in my relationship. And I actually get to experience, I get to see those bonds happen. The way that happens is through empathy. Now, if empathy is so amazing, how come we're not all empathetic all the time? Well, empathy takes vulnerability. Vulnerability can be hard. We don't want to go there sometimes. We get defensive. We shut down. We distract. We do all kinds of things to avoid that vulnerability in a relationship, especially if we've got a lot of our own shame. That's why Brené Brown talks about empathy, because she's a shame researcher. Your ability to be empathetic is directly correlated to your ability to be shame resilient. So if you're resilient to your own shame, you don't have those fears about who you are, you can sit with someone and you can allow them to feel. In my groups, I show this example of empathy from the movie Inside Out. And let me just tell you a little bit about what happens. So Bing Bong, I believe that's his name, the imaginary friend, loses his wagon. His wagon goes off the abyss. And he's sitting there sad, crying. And the character Joy comes up and says, it's gonna be okay, you're okay, everything's all right. Like, we can overcome this. And he doesn't feel better. Nothing changes for him. And then Sadness comes up, the character Sadness. And she says something like this. She says, man, that's really hard. I would be sad too if I lost my favorite toy. And Bing Bong says, yeah, I am sad. And he starts to cry. And then all of a sudden, he hugs Sadness, and you feel that relief of like, I've processed this. I felt this emotion now, and you've helped me process this because you've been there with me in the trenches. That's an example of empathy. Empathy helps you work through the emotions, and somebody can be a catalyst for that through stepping into those emotions with you. Empathy is more of a skill than sympathy. Sympathy, it's easy for your heart to go out to somebody and for you to care about somebody's pain. Empathy actually takes some communication skills, and it takes some shame resiliency. When you are an empathetic person, you withhold judgment, you hold space, you learn how to validate, and you learn how to explore with somebody about what they're feeling and why they're feeling those things. And in the end, you learn how to understand another human being. And you understand them not just here, but in your heart as well. I want to challenge you to practice being an empathetic person and to appreciate yourself when you're a sympathetic person. Appreciate that you love and care about other people, but then go learn about empathy and practice it. One of the best places to practice it is with children because they have a lot of emotions. Just sit with them in their emotions, explore their emotions with them, and feel with them what they're feeling. An important skill that it takes to empathize is to regulate your emotions. So check out my other video, How Do I Keep My Emotions Under Control? And it will help you empathize.